in. So let's go ahead and begin, shall we? Okay, well, how's everybody doing out there? Chime in and let me know that you're out there. Let me know how it looks. I know the comments are delayed sometimes, so I do apologize. Sorry about the technical difficulties we had in the beginning, but it looks like we're looking good now. We got a new camera. How does it look? Beautiful. It looks really pretty. So we got a weird there. I think it might be the cord. That is so odd. If it keeps doing weird things, I do apologize. That is so strange. We're going to leave it alone to see if it stays that way. Anyway, this is Once in a Wild, and my name is Amanda, and let's go ahead and get started with our first animal, shall we? That's why you guys came to see the show, is for animal. So I've got a really cute one coming right at you first. It's our first animal out of 3 different species we're going to be learning about. Here he is. This is Thor, and he's a ferret. And here he is for you guys on Facebook. Let me get him some treats so he's occupied. So ferrets are actually in the weasel family. They are mustelids. And as you can see, he is a white ferret. Now, a lot of people ask me if he is an albino ferret, but he is not. He is actually a silver ferret. He is mostly white. He has a little bit of gray on him. You might be able to see that from behind. In his winter coloration, he has a lot more different colors and patterns. He actually just went through a really big shed and lost a lot of his coat. Just like some of you guys that have dogs that have very, very heavy winter coats. Those winter coats sometimes blow out a couple of times a year. Same thing with a ferret. A domestic ferret usually will kind of blow out their coat, usually just during the summer or spring and summer. So it's about to be spring. It's spring now, right? I don't even know what season it is anymore. I don't go outside much these days, but it is spring. So as a species, these guys will actually blow their coats. So he just went through quite a drastic change. For those of you that saw him last time, he was a little bit longer in the hair, longer hair, and he has some different coloration. So it'd be fun to watch the first program that he was on here on our live stream to see how he's changed. So Thor's about a year old or so. He's a little bit over a year now. You can kind of see how slender he looks now. Look at his tail. His tail looks a lot different than it did before because he's lost a lot of his big winter coat. Didn't you, son? Didn't you? You're such a good boy. Yes, you love your mama, don't you? He's a really sweet ferret. So I have 2 ferrets here at Once in a While. We have Thor and we have Loki. So this is Thor. And again, these guys are in the weasel family. And today we're actually going to be meeting 3 animals that are all obligate carnivores. So that means that he eats meat and only meat. He is not an omnivore as a species. These guys are derived from the European polecat, which is the species that they come from. The European polecat is kind of like the wolf to the dog, as you guys know or may know. The domestic dog actually comes from the wolf. And that is a wild animal, right? So these guys come from a species called the European polecat. You can see them a little bit better if I scoot back. And they were domesticated about 2,500 years ago, so 2,500 years ago. The reason that they were domesticated in the first place was actually mostly for hunting purposes. So these guys are amazing, amazing predators. You can probably see his well, he's eating some of this baby food that I'm giving him. Right now he's having chicken baby food, which is a great treat item to give them while they are in shows and needed to be staying occupied. These guys are busybodies, so giving them something to do helps them to stay still, just like kids, right? So they were originally domesticated, kind of like wolves were domesticated for human purpose, which is to, well, wolves were domesticated for different reasons, but partially to help us hunt as humans, because humans sometimes hunt other animals, right? So these guys were also domesticated for the purpose of hunting. And they hunt things like rabbits, and they even keep places where humans live nice and rat-free because they are good at hunting rats and mice and things like that. So they're very, very good at that. They're actually even better than cats are at hunting mice, believe it or not. These guys are tunneling animals, so they can even help us do things like dig into tunnels or go into tunnels because they are so slender-bodied and long-bodied like this. You see his long body and short legs. He is very, very flexible. We'll show you that here in a little bit once he settles down just a little bit, maybe. They're super flexible. They have flexible spines. They can get into small crevices and things. They were even taken onto boats to help those boats to get rid of rats. So since they're such good hunters, these guys can be good ratters as well. They can eat all kinds of rodents. They are obligate carnivores. So out there in nature, they do not eat any kind of carbohydrates or vegetables. And that is actually what we feed them here at Once in a Wild as well. We do not feed them anything except for raw meat and the occasional, of course, chicken baby food for treats only and for programs and training and things like that. And that is not bad for them either. But we believe that the raw diet is the best for these guys because they are obligate carnivores. The more carbohydrates and the more vegetables they eat potentially could actually either make them sick, lessen their life expectancy, and of course produce more poop because they're expelling a lot of that extra food that they don't need. Look how cute he is, licking my hand. So cute. You guys can probably see his little canines. See if you can get a little bit of a better view. They do not have rodent-like teeth, so they are not rodents at all. In fact, these are hunters of rodents. They're in the weasel family. So the weasel family includes things like weasels, ferrets, let's see, wolverines, otters, minks. All kinds of animals are in the weasel family. They are all carnivores, and most of them are obligate carnivores. Okay? Do we have any questions so far? Let's see. Juanita says, is that a ferret? And he is. He is a ferret who is white. Now, he is not an albino. A lot of people ask me if he is albino. He is not. And that is because he has black eyes instead of red eyes. And an albino ferret would have very, very, very light hair with no pigment at all. An albino ferret's hair is actually see-through, like a polar bear's hair is see-through. And it is not white. It is clear. And an albino ferret would have red eyes. He still has a little bit of coloration. Like I said, it's hard to see in this bright light, but you can see he's kind of like a silverish color. And he even has like some darker coloration on his tail and things. During the winter season, he has even more coloration because, again, he just lost a lot of his long winter coat. But an albino ferret would have red eyes, so he's not an albino. He's what we call a silver. Some people also call them a dark-eyed white. That's another term for this coloration in a ferret. For domestic ferrets, there are many, many colorations, because we have bred them that way and selectively bred them. Who else is tuning in? Everybody's tagging their friends. Thank you so very much. If I can't get to your questions on Instagram, I'll take some questions at the end because I have my hands full, as you might imagine. So right now, it's a little bit hard to go over there and answer questions with two hands occupied. He is very, very busy. These guys are extremely active animals. They have a very, very high metabolism for a carnivore. He's an obligate carnivore, but he needs to eat at least twice a day in the wild. Once a day would be really, really pushing it. And every other day would be very, very bad for these guys. These guys have a very fast metabolism. And they're either running around catching food, sleeping very, very hard, or going to the bathroom. That's about all of the modes of activity or inactivity that they have. Yeah. They are amazing predators. These guys can actually hunt animals up to 3 times or more their body weight. And that goes for all weasel-type animals. If you think of a wolverine, that's one of the largest mustelids or weasels. And those guys are extremely tenacious. And I believe the wolverine is actually the largest one, now that I think about it. Wolverines, badgers are another one. Badgers are really famous for being very tenacious, going after very large prey, right? Very, very tough animals. And same thing with the ferret and the weasel. So these little teeny tiny weasels, some of them are very, very small, about a third of Thor size. And those guys can actually eat something about 10 times their own size. They can go after very, very large rabbits and things like that. But for the ferret, which is the wild version of the ferret of this species, is the European polecat. That is where these guys are from. European polecats are, of course, from Europe. And they go after things like rodents, rabbits, birds, fish, eggs, really anything they can get a hold of. That is another animal they will try to eat, even if it is very, very big. Now, the European polecat is actually a solitary species most of the time, unless they're having babies and coming together for breeding in general, right? Baby ferrets are called kits, kind of like a short version of kitten. That's what baby ferrets are called. But they're mostly solitary. But through domestication, so about 2,500 years ago, these guys were domesticated. And through lots of domestication, they have become a lot more social. So social with people, social with each other. Ferrets in the care of humans tend to do really, really well with another friend. And we do have 2 of them here at Once in a While. So they can play together, which they do a lot. They can sleep together, which they also do a lot. And it's really adorable. And spend a lot of time together. But in the wild, they're actually a solitary animal most of the time. Not to say that they, can't have their babies with them and, help them learn how to survive and things like that, and they're social in that way. And but they are mostly solitary, which I find very interesting. It's something that has changed with domestication. Now, back to why they were domesticated. Again, it was mostly for hunting purposes. These guys are very, very good at going into tunnels and hunting rabbits, and also keeping houses and boats rodent-free. They can get into all kinds of nooks and crannies that rodents and rabbits can get into. For a rabbit, they go into their warren, which is a rabbit's tunnel or den, right? So out there in Europe, there are European rabbits and other lagomorph species that these guys would actually eat and hunt very, very well. They're going to go right into that tunnel system or warren that the rabbit has built for themselves. They'll go up in there. They can either flush them out for their humans. So the human might be on the other side of the warren or tunnel with a net or something like that. And the rabbits will run right out into the net. And the ferret might get some of the rabbit as a reward because that is their food. But in nature, they're going to hunt in a very similar way. They'll go into the rabbit's den, tunnel, things like that. The warren is what it's called. And they will go in there, eat some rabbits, and live in the tunnel afterwards. These guys are amazing at living inside of very, very small places like tunnels. They have very, very long bodies and short legs. You can see him gripping onto my arm right there with his back legs. He's so cute. And they're very, very good at bending and flexing. Let's see if he'll let me, if I put some food on his nose, if he'll be occupied. So they're very flexible. They have a very long spine, and the spine is very flexible. So imagine he's going into a tunnel. Here he goes, going to the tunnel, and then he needs to turn around because it's a dead end. That's okay. Whoop, he can just turn right around. Whoop. And he's very flexible in his spine. You can see how bendy he is. He's just ready to run around. That's why he's wiggling, not hurting him at all. And he can do a full sit-up, whoop, and he can go all the way like that. They're extremely, extremely flexible animals. Yes, you deserve a treat. As you can see, they love their food. And this is their primary reinforcer, this baby food that I use, this chicken baby food. So when we talk about animal training, we use words like reinforcer. Reinforcer means it's their treat or their reward for doing a good job. So when you are training animals, especially kind of more exotic type animals, not necessarily dogs and horses and things like that, even though these guys are domesticated too, they don't do well with punishment. So we want to use positive reinforcement. In fact, we encourage that with all animals. You guys have animals at home too, even your dogs and cats and things. You want to find something that they really, really like. That way they will do what you're asking for that thing that they like. And we call that a reinforcer or reinforcement, right? So ferrets are very, very smart. They're very trainable, but they're also very specialized. So we have to work with what works for them. We don't expect them to be a cat or a dog. So we ask them to do things that they can do, right? That's only fair. So back to domestication of these guys. One other really cool thing I forgot to mention is, of course, they were kind of domesticated for hunting. So hunting rabbits and getting rats out of the place and, out of your human's home and things like that. But imagine if you, every now and then, they're breeding these ferrets and they're trying to domesticate them. Imagine every now and then you get an albino ferret. Now, he's not an albino. He's a black-eyed, a dark-eyed white or a silver. But when you are, old days, occasionally albino specimen of a ferret, do you think those would be ideal for hunting out in the field? Or do you think they would stand out too much? They would probably stand out a little bit too much, right? So instead of using those guys for hunting, and because they were kind of special and more rare than the dark colored ferrets, because by the way, these guys are very dark. They almost look like a raccoon. They have a mask in nature. You guys have probably seen a ferret that is a sable, which is what they're called. It's very dark with a white mask. And those guys are more the natural color that would kind of blend in better to the natural environment. But occasionally, they, like I said, they would get an albino specimen. And he's so cute. It makes me so distracted. We love him. He's so beautiful and he loves his food. Oh my goodness. So yeah, every now and then they would get an albino specimen, but guess what would happen to the albinos? They would be treasured among ferrets. So any white or albino ferret that would come into existence would actually be given as pets to royal families and very important people. In fact, back in the old days, only very rich people and very important people like politicians and royalty and all of that back 2,500 years ago would have ferrets in general, because it's kind of a luxury, right? Because back in the old days, you were lucky to even have enough food to feed yourself. Some people are still like that, and that's okay. Not everybody can afford pets, especially back then. So when the white ones would actually be born or come into existence, they would be especially treasured by some of those families. So he's a very, very special ferret, aren't you, Thor? What questions do we have so far? Maybe I'll get back to the ones on Instagram, but let's see if I have any on Facebook. Everybody's tagging their friends. It's really, really appreciated. Remember, we are usually reliant on public programs and things like that. So normally we do public programs like classroom presentations, and we do birthday parties, and even animal therapy with some of our animals. And right now we can't go see anyone, so we're reliant on you guys' donations, and the more publicity, the better. So the more you can tag your friends and share our videos, even better. We're also offering Zoom Room animal encounters right now through our Zoom app, or through everybody's Zoom app. It's not really our app, but that's how we're doing it. And you guys can customize your animal encounter to your liking. We start at 30 minutes and go up from there. If you guys are interested in a Zoom room, please give me a text or a call. My number is down below. If you're on Instagram, it's 210-445-5240. And you can find that at onceonawhile.com as well. I think Thor is so, so pretty. Of course, Thor's brother's name is Loki. It's not his real brother. He's an adopted brother, which I find funny because that's how Thor and Loki are also. That's why we named them that. One is light, and Loki is actually the dark ferret. We've done a program with him before on here too. And so has Thor. He's a really, really good ferret. These guys are about a year old, so they're still very, very young. And he's got a long ways to go here in the care of humans. We try to raise our ferrets as healthy as we can. Our ferrets were actually neutered very late. They weren't neutered early. It's not good for ferrets to be neutered very, very early, like a lot of them are. It stunts their growth, and it can cause a lot of health problems, like adrenal disease, which is something that affects them very, very, very bad. And but these guys did not get neutered early, so yay, they should have a very healthy life. And we also, like I said, feed them the best food that we can possibly feed them, which is a raw meat diet. A lot of people ask me what they get to eat. Right now he's having chicken baby food, but that's not his regular food. It's just a treat. What he gets to eat most of the time is items with bone in them. It's very important for them to get some bones to eat. Believe it or not, they do eat bones. So things like chicken wings, chicken feet, chicken necks, those are a good source of bone. There's other things too that he gets on occasion, like whole prey items like rats and mice sometimes. And it's important for them to also get organs and all kinds of things to eat. Delicious, right? But if you think about it, we eat meat too, and we just don't eat it raw, we eat it cooked. So it's just a little bit different, but that is very, very important. Sorry, buddy, food all over your face. Oh no, stay still. Right there on my hand. I accidentally slapped him with food in his face. Oh geez Louise. Hi Angel, nice to see you guys. Nice to see Sharon. Nice to see Lauren, of course, Juanita, everybody tuning in. It's really, really exciting. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Now today, we're meeting 3 different species. This is just our first species. And his name is Thor, and he's a ferret. He is a silver ferret, or a dark-eyed white ferret. He's so adorable with all the food all over his face. Oh my goodness. Yum, yum. What a mess. But we are meeting 3 animals that are all what we call obligate carnivores. Y'all know what carnivores eat, right? They eat carn. Just kidding, they eat meat. But that's where the derivative of the word carn comes from, right? Carne. So carnivore comes from the fact that they eat meat, and only meat. They don't eat any vegetables or carbohydrates or anything like that. Only meat. And we're meeting 3 animals today, including the ferret, that are meat eaters and only eat meat. Yeah, pretty cool. Y'all know that not all animals eat salad and fruits and vegetables, right? Some have to hunt for their food. Some obligate carnivores are scavengers, and some obligate carnivores are predators. So Thor is a ferret, and ferrets are in the weasel family, and the whole lot of the weasel family, or mustelids, are all very, very efficient predators. They will run right after prey. They will grab them with their sharp, strong teeth, and they will bite, and usually bite to kill very quickly, and then they will eat that animal. Like I said, they eat bones, they eat organs, they eat meat, the meat, the flesh, all of that. That is what they eat. And I don't mean to scare anyone. Don't worry, they don't eat humans or anything like that, so not something made out of nightmares. I think they're adorable. And of course, a lot of people love obligate carnivores like cats, like tigers and lions and all those kind of things. I almost said bears, but bears are not obligate carnivores. They are omnivores. So carnivores eat nothing but meat. Omnivores eat both meat and plants, and herbivores eat nothing but plants. Obligate carnivores means that it actually will harm them if they get too many carbohydrates and vegetables if they eat them. Cedric is here. He says, by Odin's beard, he is cute. Oh, thank you for being as nerdy as us. We have a lot of very, very nerdy animal names, but we are very proud of that. And I think Thor is a great name for a ferret. Plus, this is a European species. Now, let's mention a couple of other relatives of him. So the European polecat, which is the derivative species, the original ferret, if you will, of this ferret. This is a domesticated ferret. They come from the European polecat. They are very, very, very similar, even though they have been domesticated for about 2,500 years. They're similar in body. They're similar, some of them the same color. Behavior is similar. They're just domesticated versions, right? There's a few changes here and there. Colors and things, and behavior, of course. Behavior is much, much less wild than their polecat cousins. But there are other ferrets. Did you guys know? There are ferrets right here in the United States, if you guys are from the US. There are some out there in the Great Plains. They are called black-footed ferrets. Black-footed ferrets are a different species of ferret than the domesticated ferret. They did not come from the black-footed ferret. They came from the European polecat, another member of the weasel family. But the black-footed ferret was actually a very, very, very endangered species until zoos brought them back from extinction. They were almost extinct in the wild. But because of special breeding programs and re-releasing of those black-footed ferrets, they are making a comeback. Black-footed ferrets live out in the Great Plains, and they eat almost nothing but prairie dogs. Pretty cool. It's just one really neat cousin of the domesticated ferret. Black-footed ferrets are much more slender. They have shorter hair because they live in a little bit of a warmer climate. These guys are a European species, so they go through a lot of hard weather changes. They go from spring, summer, fall, and winter, of course. And like I said, in the beginning of this program, our ferrets just went through their whole coat change. So they had longer hair during the winter to keep warm, which they would have to do in the wild, right? And they start slicking down as the spring approaches and losing a lot of hair. They went through a very, very big shed. There was lots of hair everywhere. I was cleaning it up all the time. And now he's down to his kind of spring and summer coat. So it'd be a lot more comfortable for him. Now, of course, these guys live indoors, but they still go through that coat change regardless, just like your dogs at home would do that. If you have like a husky or something like that, or a chow, those guys do go through a pretty big coat change. Right. Have you finished? Are you done with your food? You're gonna lick your chops. He is so soft. I wish you guys could feel him. He's very, very soft. You can see some of the hair probably flying around. See if I can show you. He's still shedding a little bit. These guys don't shed a lot, except for those couple of times a year that they do, or once or twice a year that they do change coats. Do we have any questions? So I already answered this, Sharon, but these guys get a raw meat diet. That is what's the best food for a ferret, is actually raw meat. They don't get any kibble or anything else. Even this chicken baby food is just a treat, and they only get it when they're either working or, this is his job, just eating on camera, or doing programs or in training. And they really like their food too. The food is actually a pretty good reinforcer as well. Their favorite, I would say their favorite raw meat is either heart. They get chicken hearts every now and then. Once or twice a week, they get chicken hearts. And let's see, what else do they really like? Oh, cow tongue. They really like cow tongue too. Something about that cow tongue, delicious. Not a fan myself, but some people like lingua, right? They just eat it raw. Yum. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and let Thor rest, because I don't want to run out of too much time, but Thor is adorable, and I think he did a fantastic job. And you guys will definitely see him again. And remember, we have two ferrets here at Once in a Wild, Thor and Loki. Loki is the dark one, and Thor is the light one. Pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and let him rest right here in his kennel. And we'll go ahead and meet our next animal. I'll set him aside really fast. And if you guys don't mind, I'm going to wash my hands with hand sanitizer. Don't tell anybody we have it. It's a hot commodity right now. But as you can probably imagine, I have a lot of chicken baby food all over my fingers. Let's see. Jana is asking, do they have a place to run around? How active are they? Ferrets are extremely active. And they do need a lot of time to play and to explore, run around outside of their enclosure. It's not a good animal to, not necessarily a bad pet or anything like that. If you guys want a pet ferret, they're very, very good pets. But they demand a lot of attention and a lot of time. Let's highlight your question now that my hands are clean. Very, very good question. But yes, they need a lot of time outside of their enclosure to play and to exert some of their energy. Ferrets are kind of either running around like crazy, going nuts, or sleeping really hard, or eating, or using the bathroom. Those are their four kind of things they do. And also having a second ferret is really, really helpful to give them a companion. If they are a ferret that gets along with other ferrets, most of them do just fine with other ferrets. It gives them that play. It gives them someone to play with other than a human, because humans don't really meet all of their needs, in my opinion. And of course, there are exceptions. Some ferrets do totally fine on their own, and actually better on their own sometimes. It's just like dogs. So a lot of dogs do really well with another dog, and some dogs don't do well with other dogs. The same kind of thing. But yes, they do need a ton of time to play. They need a lot of training, activity. They are litter box trainable, but you have to train them to do that. And I do have, basically they're here in my home. So they have time to run around in a room. I also have a little outdoor area that they can run around, and we're always kind of changing that up to give them more things to do with their time. Does that answer your question? What other questions do we have? Let me find out before we move on to our next animal. I want to make sure all the questions get answered. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and tagging all your friends and sharing our video. That was Thor the ferret. Thor is one of two ferrets who we have here once in a while. And everybody's tuning in. Hello, Jalen. Hello, Jacqueline. Danica. Danica says, oh my God, he's so cute. I agree. I very much agree. Ferrets are one of my favorite mammals. Very, very active animal. And let's check on Instagram and see if you guys have questions too. Let me see. How long do they normally live? That's a good question. So ferrets in the care of humans, it just depends on their genetics and their care and their breeding and their diet and everything like that. But they can live anywhere from 10 to 12. That would be kind of on the old end. It used to be 7 to 10 was what I was told back in the old days, back when I was first working with animals. I've been working with animals for a long, long time. And when I first started working with them, I had a ferret growing up and everything. They told me 7 to 10, but now it's more like 10 to 12 because care is improving. So that's very, very good. So around 10, I would say. Good question on Instagram. Out there in the wild, of course, it's going to be shorter life expectancy because they're on their own. They don't get vet care. They don't get food every single day. They're having to fend for themselves, of course, etc. So animals in the wild in general don't live nearly as long as they do in the proper care of humans with good care. There are always exceptions, though. So in the wild, they're going to live anywhere from like 2 to 5 maximum. They're also breeding and everything in the wild too, which can shorten their life expectancy. So when you have pets like cats and dogs and ferrets too, and rabbits and all those animals, breeding can actually shorten their life expectancy as well. Let me see before I get my hands full. Okay, that's all of our questions so far. Let's go ahead and move on to our second obligate carnivore today, because we have nothing but carnivores in our program today. So I'm going to move on to our next one. How's that? Okie dokie. So we're gonna meet a not so hairy animal this time, which is a little bit easier in my opinion to work with because that hair just goes everywhere. So we're gonna meet a hairless animal. How about that? This is a hairless animal. Oh my goodness! And I actually have not just one but 2 of these guys. Check it out. Look how cool they are. So these are snakes, of course. Oh my goodness. Very, very active snakes. We'll see how how it goes having 2 of them at once. So these right here, their names are Midas and Sterling. And Midas and Sterling are Baird's rat snakes. You might have seen one of them. It's actually Midas during the preview a little bit ago. We had our little heads up preview. These guys are babies. They're about a year old or so. And they are Baird's rat snakes. So Baird's rat snakes are actually really cool animals. They are in the rat snake family, of course. They're also closely related to corn snakes and other snakes like that. They are a colubrid. When we talk about colubrids, that's just a type of snake, a category of snakes. When we talk about snakes, we have 3 general categories, and there are also extra ones too, but I won't get into that so I don't confuse you guys too much. So we have basically venomous snakes, which these are not. We have constrictors like boas and pythons, and then we have colubrids. Colubrids are kind of like the leftover snakes. And my goodness, they're just all tangled up. So cute. These are definitely a colubrid type snake. So slender bodied in general, kind of like an extra category of snake. So these Baird's rat snakes can actually be found right here in Texas, where I'm from. You can find them in West Texas and South Texas. You can also find them in places like Mexico. So Mexico and Texas are actually the only two places where you can find these guys in the wild. And in my opinion, they are very, very underrated and underknown snakes. I'm going to go ahead and take one away so I can concentrate a little bit better. Just going to have her hang out next to me. We have Midas and Sterling are Baird's rat snakes. And Midas is the male and Sterling is the female. They are non-related. A lot of people ask me if they're siblings. They're not. They're just around the same age. They get along pretty well. As you can see, they're not snake-eating snakes, so they're just fine hanging out together on occasion. But these are beautiful, beautiful animals. And snakes are, of course, very, very misunderstood, which is very sad to me because snakes are one of my favorite animals. Colubrid, that's right, Richard, very, very good. So this type of snake gets around 4 to 5 foot long. On occasion, they can be around 6 foot, but that is very, very rare because unfortunately, the Baird's rat snake isn't as long-lived as some of the other rat snake species. So like corn snakes and some other, maybe like a Texas rat snake or even Asian rat snakes, all kinds of rat snakes in the world, right? A lot of them can live into their 20s or more. These guys usually make it to maybe 20. So teens and 20s is typically how long they live, but that's always changing, just like the life expectancy of the ferret. We talked about that. These guys also are under better care than they used to be. We're always learning how to take care of them better. So who knows, maybe their life expectancy will actually be a little bit longer in the future. But typically they live anywhere from maybe 12 to 15 is what people generally tell me about them. And that is why they don't grow as long as some other rat snakes. And it's also genetics too, and what they're related to. It all comes into play. But snakes and other reptiles never stop growing their entire lifetime. Therefore, if they lived longer, they would grow more. Does that make sense? So again, we're talking about obligate carnivores. So these guys are definitely carnivores. And they are hunters. So this type of snake, as you can see, are very, very active. They move around quite a bit. See if I can focus on him at all. We have a new camera today, so we're playing with focal points and things to see how it goes. Maybe if I scoot in a little bit closer. Ooh, so beautiful. These guys are obligate carnivores. They are hunters, very active. They will actively seek out, since they are in the rat snake family, they're known for eating rodents. Now, a small snake like this, and even an adult Baird's rat snake, wouldn't necessarily eat rats unless it's a very, very young, small rat, right? They're going to be eating things like mice, other rodents. They can eat birds, they can eat eggs, and when they're little like this, they might even eat lizards and things. And they've been known to occasionally eat lizards even when adults, if they're looking for food and they can't find anything else. But rodents are going to be their food of choice. These guys are very, very good eaters, especially in the care of humans. These guys will take almost anything they're given. Here, once in a while, these guys eat pinkies and fuzzy mice, and they eat frozen thawed. No problem. These guys are amazing eaters. So obligate carnivore, they are active hunters. They're very important to the food chain. Snakes are very misunderstood and a lot of people are afraid of them. I hope you guys aren't. And if you are afraid of snakes, it's a good way to learn about them right now, right? Because you're far away. But these guys are extremely important to humans, and most snakes are harmless to humans, and all snakes do not want to harm you. Even if they are a harmful species, potentially harmful species, they do not want to harm you. So even a venomous snake does not want to use its venom on you because their venom is very, very precious to them. And they need their venom to eat their food. This is a non-venomous snake, though, completely harmless. And the Baird's rat snake is actually known for being one of the more gentle wild rat snakes in the wild and in the world. Again, they are from Texas and Mexico. So there are two kind of different localities of the Baird's rat snake, and they are two different kind of colorations, still very similar. And we'll talk about their coloration in just a moment because it's my absolute favorite thing about them. This is one of my favorite type of snakes because of this. But they do have two different localities. That just means where they're from. One is the Mexican variety and one is the Texas variety. This is actually the Texas Baird's rat snake. And let's talk about their coloration a little bit. So his name is Midas, right? Do you guys know much about mythology and King Midas? What happened to King Midas? King Midas had the touch of gold, right? So that's why I named him that. We have sterling as well. Sterling is, of course, another word for silver. So these guys are silver right now. You see that beautiful silver coloration. You might even actually be able to see it a little bit better on her. Let's see if she'll come back out. So she's a little bit younger than Midas. This is Sterling again. And Sterling has a little bit of a different pattern. A little bit. They're the same species, but she's just younger. Can you see how right here she's got more of a dorsal spotting pattern? Dorsal just means back. So on her back there, she's got more spots, kind of like all the way across the spine there. So Midas looks like this. See the difference? So he's still got some dorsal spotting too, but it's starting to go away. So when these guys are born, they look almost like every other rat snake. They have spots on their back. We call them dorsal bands or dorsal saddles on their back. You can, if you back up here, you can kind of see that they're still there. They're just faded on him, right? But as they grow and as they shed their skin, like all snakes do, they shed their skin to grow, right? They will little by little change color. And that happens to many, many different snake species, but none more, I think, drastic than the Baird's rat snake. And I'm sure there's other ones that do drastically change too. But almost every snake species, like rat snakes and things, they will change when they are babies to a different coloration when they are adults. Isn't that amazing? So Midas here will be gold by the time he is an adult. So these guys, the Texas Baird's rat snake, they start kind of like a silver color gray with spots on their back. They kind of just look like any other rat snake or corn snake when they're babies. And then eventually, instead of dorsal spots or saddles, he's going to have stripes all the way down, kind of like up and down his body. You can kind of see those starting to form here. Pretty cool. So he will never, he will not have those spots anymore. He will just have the stripes down his body all the way down, and he will be a lot more gold. And what's even more exciting about this species is that each and every individual has a different look. So every Baird's rat snake will look totally different than another Baird's rat snake. They are individuals. Look at him hanging on to himself. Whoa, hanging on to himself. Now these guys are climbers. They can climb quite a bit. They are a semi-arboreal snake, which means they live partially in the trees and partially on the ground. They can be terrestrial on the ground, or they can be arboreal in the trees. Let's see if we can, I'm moving my computer over. Maybe we can bend the camera down. Maybe you can see him slithering on the ground. Nope, we lost our camera. There we go. Sorry about that. We lost our camera there for a second. New things. I just wanted to see if you guys could see him kind of slithering on the table. They are really cool to watch. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. See how he slithers? Let's see if he'll slither a little bit. That is so cool. Now snakes don't have legs, right? But they do get around anyway. And that is through their muscle movements, through their scales, and things like that. But you can see how he could move on the ground as well as climbing in the trees. See how he will climb onto my finger? Where are we going? There we go. He will climb onto my finger. Let's see how he slithers on the ground too. Cool, huh? See if he'll climb up onto the table here. Animals don't always do what we expect them to do. And cameras don't either, apparently. But they are just so beautiful. He's very, very silver, like I said. But he will get to be almost totally gold with some silver and maybe reddish or orangish markings. And it'll be really cool to show you guys his progress as he grows. Okay? Now, I imagine he will be grown in no time because these guys eat like really, really well. Whoa! Sorry again about losing you guys there. Haha. Lost our camera there for a little bit. Can you guys still hear me and everything? Yeah, we are learning all the things today, and as always. There we go. Ah, perfect. Do we have any questions about the snake so far? Now remember, snakes hunt very differently than like a ferret would hunt. These guys cannot hear. They don't have any ears. They can feel vibrations. They do not have eyelids, so they're always looking around, but they don't have great vision. The ferret, by the way, has really good vision, but they have no color vision, and neither does a snake. A snake does not see very well. A snake does not see very well. They're kind of more based on movement, but they're always looking around. They never blink because they don't have eyelids. Snakes have a eye cap scale over their eye instead of eyelids, right? So they're always looking around, but they kind of have fuzzy vision, definitely no color vision. Now, another way that they can hunt is through their sense of smell. Snakes have a forked tongue, which is always kind of sticking in and out of their mouth. You can probably see that. He has a pink tongue, very, very pretty. And it's a forked tongue that will sense the world around him and actually bring back into his mouth, and that will tell his brain through a special organ called a Jacobson's organ what is going on around him. And that is a great way to sense prey. So sensing prey, like where they're going, since they can smell directionally through a forked tongue, that is going to be very handy when trying to catch moving prey. Cool, huh? So that's one way that they can hunt. These guys are very, very active hunters and obligate carnivores, just like the ferret. They just hunt in a different way. Now, snakes, of course, don't chew their food or lick up their food with their tongue like Thor did. They can actually extend their mouth wide enough to eat something about 3 times the size of their head. That would be like a human eating a watermelon whole. Pretty amazing. I'm not going to do that on camera because I can't. That would be very, very hard. But these guys have a jaw that is not fused together. So our jaw is very limited. It's kind of just goes like this. Their jaw is not fused right here in the front, and it is very stretchy with ligaments right here. So they can open up very, very wide, like that, and they can also open up sideways since this is not fused. That stretchy skin in between just kind of like opens up really nice and wide so they can eat. If you guys missed our snake feeding video, you can go back and watch that too. We had a corn snake eating a mouse, which was really, really fun. Does it look metallic? I can't tell on screen. He's not super iridescent or anything, if that's what you mean. Ricky's asking. He's not super iridescent, but as they grow, they get more and more metallic looking, which is why I named him Midas. Because remember, Midas turned to gold in mythology, so that is why I named him that. So he will go from this kind of gray silver to very, very gold looking, hopefully. Now, some of these Baird's rat snakes actually stay a little bit more silver, so it really just depends on the individual. Every single individual is going to be different. They are absolutely gorgeous. In case you were wondering, the tattoo on my arm is actually a Baird's rat snake, but it is a Mexican Baird's rat snake. You see it? So the difference between a Mexican Baird's rat snake and a Texas Baird's rat snake is going to be the coloration of their head, mostly. So a Mexican Baird's rat snake will actually keep a almost fully gray top of the head with no pattern on the top of the head. That's kind of my favorite. Don't tell him, but that's kind of my favorite locality of the Baird's rat snake. This is a Texas Baird's rat snake, and then the Mexican Baird's rat snake I like a little bit more. That's why I got the tattoo. That's what I'm trying to say. But the Texas Baird's rat snake, like this one, will actually have more of a like a golden head. So just a little bit different. Okay. So will rat snakes eat mice? Yes. Rat snakes eat all kinds of things. They were coined rat snake just because they eat rodents. Rodents is kind of like the general term. Sorry, rats is the general term for rodents back then. That's why they called them the rat snake. Now they can eat young rats once they reach a certain size. These guys are really, really small right now. They're babies. They're about a year old. But they could eat very, very tiny, tiny baby rats when they get a little bit older, or maybe even like small, tiny, tiny young rats when they get a little bit older. But right now they can only eat small mice. So yes, they absolutely do eat mice. They eat other rodents, all kinds of things, hamsters, whatever they can find out in the wild. I don't know if there's any hamsters in Texas, but if they found one, they would eat it. Tell you what. And these guys can also eat birds and eggs and lizards, all kinds of things. They're not really snake eaters. They're not known to eat other snakes. So if that answers your question. Here's a good question. Is it only that turn gold / get stripes? No, the females do too. So both male and female will actually totally change coloration as they age. But each individual, whether they be male or female, might look totally different than another Baird's rat snake. It's kind of like their little fingerprint. So yeah, they both do the color change. It's pretty awesome. I'm glad you guys can hear me. Very, very good. In the wild, would fish be on the menu? Not so much for this species. They're more of an arid type snake, so they don't live around a whole lot of water. Of course, they drink water and everything, but they're not known to hunt fish, like maybe like a garter snake or a banded water snake or something like that. They're not super big on eating fish, although I'm sure maybe if I offered him one here in the Care of Humans, he might eat it. So who's to say that he wouldn't, but they're not known to eat fish, no. It's okay, Midas can't hear you anyway. That is right. Snakes cannot hear. So regardless, yes, that is true. Snakes can feel vibrations, of course. And there are some theories that they can hear a little bit, but they do not have external ear holes at all, like a lizard does. And not every lizard even has external ear holes either. So no, they cannot hear. They are not hearing animals in the traditional way at all. Let's see if I have any questions on Instagram, since I'm doing a program for them as well. Let's see what we got. Doing all the things at once. A lot of people are coming in. Ooh, here's a good question. What enemies does the snake have? Ooh, I love this question. I love talking about predators and prey. So again, he's the predator. That doesn't mean he doesn't have predators, especially at a small age, right? So here in Texas, we've got all kinds of predators. And here in Mexico, down south, we have all kinds of predators too that might eat these guys. So birds of prey, king snakes, and indigo snakes are snakes that might eat them. I don't know if indigo snakes live this far over in the United States, but that is a snake-eating snake that could eat him potentially if it wandered over here. Indigo snakes are more in different areas. But anyway, other snake-eating snakes like king snakes for sure. Like I said, birds of prey, cats, dogs are potential predators. What else? Foxes, all kinds of things, y'all. So anything that's bigger than this snake that eats other animals is a potential predator for sure. But think about it. They live in Texas and in kind of more arid regions, and they also live in Mexico and arid regions. So anything that would be in those areas. Make sense? Very, very good question. How often do they shed their skin? I love this question. Over on Instagram, we have that question. They shed about once a month. And as they're babies, they will shed and grow very, very, they'll grow more each time they shed than an adult snake would grow. Because adult snakes grow their whole life as well, but it slows down a lot as they reach maturity. But these guys shed about once a month. And this species is known to shed very, very, very well. They don't have any shedding issues usually at all. Very, very good question. If we have any other questions over on Instagram. You guys have awesome questions. I think I answered how long do they live. That was about the ferret though too. And again, these guys aren't the longest. Unfortunately, my least favorite fact about these guys, since they are one of my favorite animals, the Baird's rat snake, is they don't live as long as some other snakes do. Baird's rat snakes are known to live anywhere from 12 to 15. It used to be 8 to 12 back when I was learning about them, and now we have improved their care. So 12 to 15 is generally what we say. And they could potentially live into their maybe early 20s, but that would be extremely old, like a 100-year-old person. So they don't live as long and they don't grow as large as some other rat snake species. But they are just wonderful, aren't they? And you can see his back is even different than his belly. You guys see that? The belly is kind of yellow. I know this lighting is really, really... Oh, there we go. You can see right next to my face. I think they are so gorgeous. And very underrated and very underknown. These guys are related to corn snakes and other rat snakes. Very, very fun. Let's talk about this. What should we do if you find a snake in your yard? You should leave all wildlife alone. Snakes are very, very important to the natural environment. Remember, as a human, we are a little bit selfish as a species, right? We tend to think that everything revolves around us. And if we're afraid of an animal, we should kill it. And that is very, very, very wrong, in my opinion. You should not just kill animals because you're scared of them or because you don't like them. Just because they're different than us doesn't mean that they're less important. In fact, snakes are very important. They are obligate carnivores and predators in the food chain. And without predators, we have an overrun of things like mice and rats and other animals that shouldn't be overrun, just shouldn't be overpopulating. So we must have animals like this in the environment. If you see a snake in your backyard, feel free to text me anytime a picture of that snake. I don't mind ever. I'm going to make sure my number is right there down below. You can text me or email me or get a hold of me somehow and show me that snake and I will tell you what it is. I'll tell you if it's a safe snake, but whether or not it's a safe snake or a dangerous snake, potentially, you should always leave it alone. If you have a snake problem, please always call a professional to remove that snake and do not harm the snake, okay? They deserve to live too. They're very, very important. And no snake wants to hurt you. Snakes are afraid of you. Even if you're afraid of them, they want nothing to do with you. They're terrified of you too. They think that you're going to hurt them or eat them. Very, very good. Okay, so we're running out of time on Instagram. And don't worry, I'll say goodbye before we go. But I want to make sure and get our last animal in because I had a special request for this animal on Instagram. So I'll make sure and show that next animal. But Midas has been absolutely gorgeous. And so was Sterling over there. There's no problem with her. I just picked one to show. I think Midas is a little bit bigger, so he is a little bit bigger. But yeah, I think Midas did a fantastic job. And we'll take more questions if you guys have more questions about the snake on Facebook. Okay, guys? Look at that beautiful red pink tongue. Okay. You are beautiful, you are lovely, and you can rest now, Midas. Good job, buddy. So we're going to move on to our third animal. We have 3 species today. We've learned about the ferret. We learned about the Baird's rat snake. And we actually had a special request for this species the other day on our last program over on Instagram. Remember, we're talking about carnivores today, but you guys won't guess what it is. Ah, here he is. What is that? Did you guys know that this was an obligate carnivore too? Is it too bright in here to see him? Look how pretty he is. And over on Instagram, do you see him? It's a leopard gecko. I had somebody request a leopard gecko. Y'all said leopard gecko or bearded dragon would be your choice for the next program. So here is Felix. Felix is a leopard gecko. Leopard geckos are carnivores. They are insectivores. So they eat nothing but bugs, and exclusively bugs. They can eat things like roaches and crickets and other bugs, spiders. They can eat worms. They can eat all kinds of invertebrates. Scorpions, if they can find a small scorpion. Things like that. If you get in focus, I know this is a different camera. Just try to scoot in so you guys can see them. These guys in the wild are found in India, Pakistan, Iran, and Iraq, and surrounding places around there. They're from the Middle East and some parts of India. They are a very arid species as well. We met the Baird's rat snake earlier from a different area of the world over in Texas and Mexico, also an arid species. Now, this is actually a crepuscular animal. The ferret was actually a crepuscular animal too, and arguably so is the Baird's rat snake, the Texas Baird's rat snake. Those guys are kind of active whenever they can be. They're all over the place. But the leopard gecko was actually considered to be a nocturnal species for a while. A lot of people thought they were nocturnal, but they're actually classified as crepuscular now, which means active during dawn and dusk, most active. These guys are insectivores, and they're very, very special when it comes to being a gecko. There are many species of gecko. So there are many species of lizards, right? All kinds of different types of lizards, iguanas, bearded dragons, geckos, monitor lizards, chameleons, all kinds of things. Geckos are just one type of lizard. And there are many types of geckos. When it comes to being a gecko, these guys are very, very special. And what makes them special is they have eyelids, they can blink, and they have no toe pads for climbing. So these guys are strictly terrestrial animals. They only live on the ground and underground. Sometimes they will live in a burrow to stay safe from predators. Their predators include things like foxes and snakes and other lizards, birds of prey, cat species, whether they be feral or non-feral cats. All kinds of predators can eat these guys. This is about as big as they get. They don't get very big, although he is a reptile, and all reptiles never stop growing their whole life. They do shed their skin just like a snake does. They actually shed in all one piece, kind of like a snake. And what's really funny about geckos, including leopard geckos, is they eat their skin when it's shedding. So these guys will actually consume their own shed. Some people think it's for nutrition. Some people think it's to actually hide the fact that they were there from predators. So if you're leaving evidence of skin near your burrow and you live in that burrow, you may show the predators where you live, and that is not good. So there's a couple of different theories on why they eat their skin. It might be for both. Leopard geckos are amazing. They don't get very large. This is about as big as they get. You can see he's kind of gripping onto my hand, but they are a terrestrial species. So they live either terrestrially or subterrestrially, which means underground or on the ground. Right. I'm just trying to make sure he's in focus if y'all can see him. They're very, very cute. They have really pretty eyes. Let's see if we can see his eyes. Oh, there we go. Look at those beautiful eyes. And he does have functioning movable eyelids. Most geckos actually have to moisten their eyes by licking their eyes. He can still lick his face and eyes with his beautiful tongue, but he doesn't have to moisten his eyes with his tongue. He can actually just blink like we do. The reason that they have eyelids is because these guys live in very arid, dry areas with lots of dust and some sand and dirt and things, and it might get into their eyes. So a lot of geckos are tropical, so they don't really need that feature. to stay safe from debris in their eyes. See that tail? He does have a very fat tail. For those of you on Instagram, how much time do I have left? It hasn't given me a warning yet. Can you guys see his tail? It is beautiful. If I lose you guys on Instagram, we'll see you next time, right? And I'll try to answer your questions on private message if I didn't get to all your questions. Now they have that beautiful kind of fat tail. That tail can store fat inside of it for hard times when they are actually not able to find enough food in the wild. They can store fat in their tail and survive off of the fat. These guys also have to brumate or hibernate during certain times of the year because, believe it or not, in those areas, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran, those guys can it can get cold there. It gets cold sometimes, so they have to brumate or hibernate. When we talk about reptiles, we use the word brumate instead of hibernate. So sometimes when they're doing that, they have to survive off of their tail fat. Another thing that can help them survive by use of the tail is going to be their ability to lose the tail. So if they get grabbed by like a fox or another predator by the tail like that, they can use what's called autonomy, tail autonomy, and they have very kind of in their bones and their tail, they're kind of segmented in a way where it can make the tail fall off easier than like a regular bone. And that is very handy because it can come off. The tail will keep moving like this, and it will encourage that predator to eat the tail, and then the rest of the animal can actually get away and survive. Then the tail will grow back. The tail does grow back kind of funky though. It doesn't have these beautiful kind of ridges on it. He's got an original tail. He's never lost his tail. Yay. But if it were to grow back, it would be totally smooth and kind of bulbous looking, a little bit different. You'd be able to tell very, very well if he had lost his tail. Cool, huh? So let's have some questions. If you guys on Instagram, looks like I have a couple minutes left. I'll let you guys see him. By the way, his name is Felix. I don't know if I told you his name. Felix, the leopard gecko, kind of like Felix the cat. They are called a leopard gecko because they have spots. Obvious, right? Those spots in the wild will kind of be all over his body. He's especially bred coloration. I don't know what the coloration is called because I'm not a leopard gecko breeder, and I don't know much about their coloration. It's very, very complicated. Some of these names and things that they come up with. But his spots would actually be kind of like on his head, but less yellow, more kind of a brownish color. And he would have spots all over him for camouflage. That is why they have the spots. But that is why they call them a leopard gecko, right? Because they have spots. It's like a leopard. Very, very similar. Cool. Here's a question on Facebook. What's the difference between a gecko and a salamander? Well, a salamander is actually not a reptile. A gecko is a type of lizard, which is a reptile. When we talk about when we talk about reptiles, there are 4 categories, which lizards, snakes, turtles and tortoises, and crocodilians. But a salamander may look like a lizard, but it is a amphibian. Amphibians have slimy skin. They go through a very, very extreme life stage change when they're growing up. All amphibians go from aquatic to terrestrial, except for a few of them like the axolotl. And yeah, so they're very, very different. So they may have similar features like legs and a beautiful tail and a head like this that's similar, but they are not reptiles. Salamanders are amphibians. Good question. How big does it get? They're going to get about this size, but they never stop growing their entire life. Little by little, he might get a little bit larger. But a leopard gecko starts off about this big in an egg, and they hatch out, and they're about this long, and then they eventually get about this big. And he is a boy leopard gecko. Bye, Instagram! Instagram cuts me off in an hour. And we're about done here on Facebook as well. For those of y'all just joining us, my name is Amanda. This is Felix, the leopard gecko. We're learning about a few animals today, and he is our last animal today. We're learning about carnivores, obligate carnivores. So he is a very tiny carnivore, but he is still a carnivore because he eats nothing but bugs. These guys, not all geckos are like that. Some geckos do eat fruit and nectar and things like that, but this is a type of gecko that does not eat those things. He is a hunter. They will eat things like bugs, spiders, worms. They eat scorpions, things like that in the wild. Pretty cool. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And Mom loves the leopard gecko. It's one of her favorites. Donna is my mom, Donna Winter. Now, again, we have geckos right here in your own backyard. If you live in the United States, you might see geckos. There are a couple of gecko species that are native to the United States, but there are a few that are also invasive, called the Mediterranean house gecko. You've probably seen those a lot. if you live right here in the United States or in the Mediterranean somewhere, I suppose. Those guys will run around your house and eat lots of insects. Even though they're an invasive species, which most invasive species aren't good for the environment, the Mediterranean house gecko does no harm to the environment. In fact, they do a lot of good by eating a lot of bugs like mosquitoes, roaches, flies, all kinds of things that are harmful to humans. So the best thing you can do for a gecko in your house is honestly just leave it alone. You don't want to harm them. And you can actually, just be careful you don't spray anything around them that's going to harm them, like chemicals and things. And you can just let them eat pesky bugs in your home. Unless you really like those bugs and those are your favorite animal. Can't judge. But most people don't really enjoy mosquitoes, flies, roaches, things like that. So having geckos around is really, really helpful. Lizards in general in your own backyard and in your home are pretty helpful too. You can just let them be and do their job. They're not harmful to humans. We recommend that you leave them alone. A lot of lizards, like the leopard gecko, maybe anoles and other geckos, they can lose their tail. But we want to make sure that their tail stays on them. That way they can actually use that defense against their real predators, not humans. So if they lose their tail, then they don't have that defense, and they might even lose a bunch of body fat. A gecko uses their tail to store body fat, like we said, right? So if they lose their tail, that's not good. They might lose a lot of weight. So the best thing to do for wild animals in your own environment is to leave them alone. This has been the really cute leopard gecko. You can see how they can climb just a little bit. They're not really great at it. Don't tell them I told you that. But they're not great at climbing. They're more terrestrial. So very unique in the gecko world, again, because they do have eyelids. And they do have those feet that are more for dwelling on the ground. Not so much on like climbing up walls and things. These guys cannot do that. Sharon is asking another good question. Do they need to drink water? Yes. So these guys are very, very, their environment is very arid. So it doesn't rain a whole lot. But in almost every environment, even in a desert, you will get dew that comes out in the morning on the plants and things. And that's where they drink their water, is off of dew. So in the care of humans, these guys need some moss and some other little items in their enclosure, which will help them to drink water. So I usually mist them once a day. And with some water so they can drink. They also have a little tiny water bowl. And they do also get a little bit of moisture from their food as well. These guys will eat things like insects, and insects do have moisture inside of them. So yes, they do need to drink water, but usually it's on the dew of plants in the morning where they're from. It used to be kind of taught when I was learning about leopard geckos, it used to be taught that they were strictly desert species, but they're more like arid grasslands and just dry, forested, arid grassland, things like that. They're not like sandy deserts where there's like loose sand and things. So in their enclosures, they do better with kind of more structured substrate. So not loose sand. Oh my God, he's so cute. Oh, so cute. Not loose sand and things like that. Although they like to dig a little bit. I actually use something called Eco Earth on them. They seem to really like that. I just keep it on the drier side. And what they do for moisture is they have a little water bowl. Of course, they have their food. Here, once in a while, we feed them worms and other bugs and things. They do very well with that. He is so cute right now. And then on the other side, whoa, he's leaving us. He is not a jumping gecko, but they can still jump sometimes. Just like our crested geckos did this last program. So we had geckos on. Oh my goodness, you're so cute though. Everybody wants to see you. Don't leave. Don't leave. He's like, now that I've learned how to jump, I'm going to do it again. So they also have moss on one side of their enclosure. That's not the hot side. And I do let that moss be nice and moist so they can get in there and get a drink, or it actually helps them with shedding their skin too. That's a very good question. I hope that answered your question. I got distracted. Well, you guys have been fantastic. Do we have any other questions before we close? The leopard gecko was super cute. We had Thor the ferret, an obligate carnivore mammal. And we had two reptiles. We had a snake and then a leopard gecko. That's what this is, leopard gecko. And all three of those animals were obligate carnivores. They don't eat any kind of fruits or vegetables in their diet. That's what makes them an obligate carnivore. Now, luckily, no of the species that we talked about today are endangered species, but that doesn't mean that we can't help them, right? We want to make sure they stay that way. So we can always help animals, even in our own backyards, by consuming. You don't consume this either, but using less plastic, recycling whenever we can, And never ever littering. We always want to make sure and pick up our trash. Make sure it doesn't affect animals in your own backyards and otherwise. And one thing you can do if you are interested in a pet reptile or anything like that, you can make sure you get them from a reputable source. And we don't want to be taking these animals out of the wild because they need to be there to make sure their populations are nice and healthy. Look at him licking his face. There's nothing wrong with having an exotic pet, maybe a leopard gecko, bearded dragon, maybe a snake, maybe a ferret. We want to make sure that all those animals are obtained from reputable sources and not taken out of the wild, right? We want to make sure that that's the thing that's happening. We don't want to support that. That's one way we can help out. And of course, leaving wildlife alone, that goes along with that too. Leaving animals in the wild to do their job. The gecko's jobs are to eat lots of insects and things for us. Snakes' jobs are to eat lots of rodents and keeping those populations down so we don't get diseases and parasites that we don't need. And then ferrets out there in Europe, the European polecat is what I should say. That's what lives out there. Those guys are also carnivores in the food chain too. So very, very important. Carnivores are very, very important to help keep populations down of pest animals, aren't they? Well, Felix, I think you're ready to go. We'll go ahead and close. He's telling me he's ready to go back and rest. And that's fine. Remember, these are a crepuscular species, meaning they're most active during dawn and dusk. So this is kind of his bedtime. So we'll let him rest. We do have 2 leopard geckos in our collection. We have Felix and Fiona. Fiona is a female. But Felix tends to be a little bit more tolerant of handling, which is why I bring him. You guys can see his beautiful tail. See how big he is? Pretty cool. I'm gonna focus on myself over here. Yeah, I think this camera worked out really well, except for the part where I unplugged it on accident. I was just trying to lean it down into the table, and I think the plug came unplugged. But we're back. We made it work. So you guys are awesome. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 Central Time here on Facebook and on Instagram as well. We do an hour program on Instagram because it only lets me be on for an hour. But we're going to be here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until we're free again. And then we'll be doing live animal programs in public. We're still going to keep up these live streams, though, I think, at least every now and then. But for now, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 Central Time, of course. You guys can catch us right here on Facebook. If you guys want to donate to our cause, we have our Venmo, which is at Once in a While. That's how you can find us on Venmo and donate whatever you can. And we also have our Amazon wish list. If you go to onceinaWhile.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, that's where you can find our Amazon wish list. And that'll say donate to our cause. That's what that button is called. And you guys have all been really awesome with your support, watching our program, sharing our information, sharing our videos with everyone. We feel like we know each and every one of you already, and we know all of your friends, and we feel like we're all, one big happy family. These programs are really fun for us to do. And it's one way we can actually kind of meet you guys and talk to you guys without actually going anywhere, which is really fantastic. So that is awesome. We appreciate anyone's support via Amazon or Venmo and just your support in general and your following of us, okay? You guys are fantastic as always. If you need anything, you need help identifying a snake, you need help identifying an animal, or you need help with animal care at all, please feel free to give me a text or a call. My number is right here, down below, right here. I can never tell. There it is. There it is. Feel free to text or call me anytime. You can also find all of our information at onceinaWhile.com. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all the things. YouTube, we're also on YouTube. All these videos go to YouTube as well. As soon as we're able to upload them to YouTube, they're going to be there too. You guys have been fantastic. And hope to see you guys next time. We're going to go ahead and close with our song, as always. Bam. One. That's the wrong song. This is it. Together, singing, that's not, that's you, man. coming as always. And we'll see you guys next time on Monday at 3:30 here on Facebook. Say bye, Felix. See you guys next time. Bye.